Hi everyone, I'm your host Arpita and welcome to the third episode of Podstar, a place where we discuss about ideas, events, phenomenon and fantasies. And thank you so much for sticking around and being such a patient and encouraging audience. And I'm hopeful that I'll be more regular with this and I'll be able to bring you some more meaningful conversations. Now, as you know, all our guests are referred to as stars because they shine bright, and the spark that they carry are not just restricted to themselves. And today's star is my go-to person for everything comprehensible and everything imaginable to the human mind, and he's Jose Royal Sami. Now, I could actually have an entire series dedicated to what a firecracker of a human he is and how exceptionally talented yet grounded he is. But I think I'd let Jose take over now and tell you who he exactly is.
Hey guys, I'm Jose, and thanks for the nice introduction, Arpita. I'm really excited to be here, be a part of Podstars. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have about 3.5 years of experience working in high stress environments. Uh, Along with that, I picked up a lot of hobbies. So I do a little bit of graphic design, I do a little bit of audio production, video production, things from all across the spectrum, basically. So that's me.
Okay, now Jose and I have been in the same stage of life cycle for a year now, and we've had a lot of shared experiences, and one of them particularly pertains to how both of us have been juggling and struggling to keep our mental health in check while pursuing a professional degree that is perceived as one of the most challenging and demanding courses. And yes, we're talking about our MBA, and hustle is our second name now. But jokes aside, today we'll be touching upon how we have been taking care of our own mental health. And before we begin to dissect it, I just want to clear it from both of us, like this is coming from both of us, that whatever that we will be talking about, it is deeply derived from our individual experiences and the things that have worked for us. And although everything that we are going to share is going to be 100% authentic and credible, we still request you not to take it as the gospel, because maybe what has worked for us might not work for someone else. And we reiterate the importance of seeking professional expertise. Now, getting that aside, Jose, is there any disclaimer that you want to give?
Yeah, same from my side. I'm going to be talking about my mental health and issues that pertain to me. Things that work for me may not work for you. Things that I might be saying might actually be detrimental in your case. It's always best to seek professional help. And again, don't treat our words like the gospel.
Yes, and also we will be talking particularly about the corporate industry because that is the sort of space both of us are most intimate with. But when we talk about hustle culture, we absolutely understand that it's not just restricted to only one industry or one segment of workforce, it's everywhere. But of course, we can only talk about the experiences we have lived in. So, I mean, first, I would just like to tell all of you that hustle culture is not just a term that we have taken up because it's in trend and because WHO has taken interest in it, but it's something that has been a part of our lifestyle now because the notion that we can only be successful and the notion that we can only be accomplished if we overexert ourselves and if we exert ourselves to the capacity after which we feel ourselves to be burnt out, that is what we consider as hustle. And we have observed, both Jose and I, that it is something that is not sustainable in the long run, because it has affected both of us psychologically and physiologically. So, of course, Jose has more experience. So, I mean, I would like to ask you, Jose, when did you identify that this sort of culture that you are seeing around yourself, it's not healthy and it's not a place for growth?
So I'll take you through my journey for that. So the first company that I worked for, it was ACG. So I traveled a lot with the company, and of course, with so much travel involved, there was a lot of stress involved as well. But I tried to manage it very well because I only worked from 9 to 5. So I was working with clients, and clients paid the company money from 9 to 5. So I wasn't obligated to stay any longer than that. So I could just leave at that point. So when things really started to take shape was when I brought that same culture to the second organization that I started to work with. And that company, I worked in sales. And sales, as you know, is a very high stress environment. I tried to do the 9 to 5 thing, but obviously that didn't fly very well because I wasn't able to keep on to my targets. I wasn't able to perform at the level that was expected of me. And of course, being me, people did expect me to do great things because that's how they hired me for the role. Anyway, I don't want to toot my own horn. What I'm trying to say is that when I started to actually hustle, when I started to push myself to the limit, that's when I actually realized that I could do so much more. Because I didn't have a lot of the hobbies that I have right now. I didn't know graphic design. I didn't know how to play many instruments. I didn't know how to do audio production. That was only when I was pushed at my job to do more, to do extra. My boss always used to use the term go to the extra degree, 1 degree extra. So you always push yourself to do a little bit extra for the client, for yourself, for your boss, for the company. You always just push yourself to a little bit extra. But again, as the journey continued, I started to see that I was pushing myself way too hard. And that led to burnout. And again, a disclaimer here, because I'm going to be talking about my personal experiences. And the first thing that I need to clear out is that I have bipolar disorder. And with bipolar disorder comes ups and downs, phases where you are very productive and phases where you are absolutely not productive at all. So with hustling, I could demonstrate that I have, I can be a very productive person. But then when the downturn comes, then of course I couldn't be productive at all. So I used to skip work for maybe a week at a time. And that was obviously like not very productive of me. My bosses weren't taking it very well. Do you want to add something to that before I continue?
Yeah, so I mean, I this is what I also wanted to ask and also wanted to talk more about it. You know, personally, both of us do not subscribe to the idea of working or overworking ourselves to the point of burnout. But the sort of people we are, the kind of person you are, and also the kind of person I am, we like taking responsibilities, we like working, we like to reach our maximum potential given our mental health supports. So at that time, it becomes very difficult to draw the line between identifying at what point am I stretching it too far that I am being burnt out, because it for me it only happens when I collapse entirely. So I do not have small triggers that low energy or feeling fatigue or eyes hurting or feeling of nothingness. It doesn't happen to me. One day suddenly I entirely collapse, and then I understand, okay, now I cannot do anything else for the next 2 days probably, and then everything comes crashing down. Because as much as I would like to tell you that, I do not like the hustle culture and I do not like to be in those sort of environments, but I am still a person who equates her daily success with the number of things she has crossed from her to do list. And that is something I'm actively working upon. But it becomes difficult to identify that how to not let that happen or how to sort of prevent it from happening. So, were you able to ever identify those small triggers or small factors?
So what happened in my case is very similar to yours. What you said about actually just collapsing. That used to happen to me. And I used to be at extreme circumstances. I used to be gone for a week. And it was not just mental fatigue. I used to be physically ill. I used to be feverish. And I used to have, let's not delve into the symptoms here. I used to be very fatigued, to say the least. What really helped me was support from people around me. Uh, at my workplace, there were a couple of people who were really, really helpful. And I'm always thankful to the support that they provided, my bosses and the people around me, because they understood that this person has phases where he's not as productive, but then he makes up for it. It's in his other phases. So, what I'm trying to say is not peculiar to bipolar disorder. It is know your limits, basically, and have people who are important to you also know your limits.
Yeah, I mean, this is very, I mean, I love the point know your limits because most of the times we're so busy in expanding our limits that we fail to realize that everything can be done, cannot be done beyond the point. And there is no such direct link that we can quantify how we can quantify how overworking and mental health are related to each other because for most of us it doesn't happen like I mean for most of us it doesn't happen as it happens to you and me. It usually begins with changes in sleep patterns, feeling irritated, and although I would obviously I would like to disclaim it again that it may not have entirely everything to do with the sort of work schedules we are in, but I want to reassure all of us here that most of it has to do with the work we are doing because that consumes a lot of our time every day. And I would really want to bring in the pandemic here because I have observed that there has been a transformational shift in how I view hustle culture and preserving my mental health pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Although I have yet not been inculcated in the direct workforce, and I yet have like 1 year to go through it. But pre-pandemic, it was always about just working, getting certificates, getting more accolades, working on more courses, and suddenly everything halted and nothing made sense for a really long time. And then I observe that people have been losing jobs, people have been losing livelihoods, and then in extreme cases, people have been losing lives. And I do not want to sound very preachy here, but it does change the outlook a lot because I have observed very close friends and family, and I have observed myself that some at those points in which we were just laying on the bed and not thinking about turning the laptop on and getting that reading done of 50-page PDF. We were just thinking, what if I was just thinking, what if I was just able to breathe again properly and be able to sleep and be able to taste again. And these small moments they compound, and then it's very helpful in realizing that quality performance may not always come from these measures of productivity we have had over the years. Sometimes it's also about compartmentalizing and prioritizing health or prioritizing work, but not to the point that it comes and invades health. How have you taken that, Jose?
It's an interesting point that you make, really interesting. And one thing that really stands out to me is that, as I was talking about having a support systems majorly failed in the pandemic because you were stuck at home and you didn't have people. And it took us a lot of time to adjust to how, you could do the same things on video calls or do the same things with texting or something right now. But it's really no substitute for actual physical interaction. And as I was saying before, you really, really need a support system to be able to be consistent at work. Because what I was trying to say when I said know your limits, I also wanted to say that you should, how do I put it? You should be able to rely on other people to give you help at times, ask for help, and be consistent at work. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk about being consistent, I would also like to point it out that do you think that the sort of standards that we have of productivity, I will not talk about success because that is very subjective right now, but do you think the standards, the societal standards that we have of productivity, do you think they're still relevant? Because why am I asking this is um there are two parts. There is one aspect which is constantly building upon create more companies, create more employment, get this done, get that done, wake up in the morning, exercise, do yoga, then start walking, and then do not get up till you're done. And then there is another side that is prioritize your sleep, prioritize the time that you have with your family, and prioritize healthy nutrition. And I mean, I have observed it is very, very, very difficult for both of these to coexist in harmony because only one of them can dominate at a point. And also, I have seen that a lot of times. We have seen. I mean, there are films like the Masha. There are films like Into the Wild. They have uh, hyper glorified the alternative careers and the corporate bashing, the bashing of 9 to 5 jobs has happened to the point that now I feel it is unjust. Because again, coming to the societal standards, do you think like it is on the more on the individual to identify this and then choose for himself or herself, or is it just like a social consciousness?
I think there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable with what they're doing, and a lot of people relate more to escapism, and they feel that the 9 to 5 that they're working in is just a prison, I'd say. And they just want to escape out of the prison. And so that's why you brought up Into the Wild. So you just give up everything. Of course, it didn't really end up well for the guy in the movie. And again, quickly bringing up the point from the point of the movie to me again was that you need to be able to rely on people again. And I'm sorry to like bring this up again and again. Talking about stress and the societal expectations. Let's talk about sales. So sales is very results driven. You are not judged on the amount of effort that you put in, but on the results that you generate, which is money, which is sales. And relating to something that I was speaking about before, is that you can measure how much of an input you are generating, but you cannot really measure what kind of results you are going to generate. They're tied, they're proportional to each other, but you only have a control on the input that you're giving, which is the amount of energy that you're expending and the amount of stress on your body that you're generating. So how do you keep up with that? How do you when you're always heckled about putting in more effort, so that it converts into more sales, it converts into more money, it converts into more results. So again, one more thing is sometimes you just have to manage expectations of people around you. Sometimes you need to put your mental health first. And in that case, I agree with the societal expectations that sometimes you just need to quit. And sometimes you just need to take a break. And a lot of my friends have done that. They have taken a hiatus from their companies. They have taken long breaks from their companies. They have simply told their bosses that, listen, I'm burnt out. I cannot do this anymore. I need a break. I'm going to Goa. And they have been to Goa and they have chilled out in Goa for 2 months. And when they're back, they are obviously more productive. Or again, some of my friends have quit their jobs, moved to another place, and started solo practices, some things like that. So yeah, I do say that at some point you would have to agree that the implications of what the society is thinking about right now it is there to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you mention the bit about sales being very result driven, then I cannot help but point out the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because if we try to look at it from a perspective of how, or having a task culture which just focuses on getting high performance job done, most of the times the people cannot be engaged, and they can be they cannot be enabled also. So in that case, I mean, it's a very old model. For those who don't know, it's called Maslow's theory of motivation, and it's hundreds of years old. But Abraham Maslow, he talks about the pyramid, and then what he says is that you can, if you, I mean, as you move upwards in the pyramid, uh your needs, the value of your needs, it's maximum at the bottom. And when you start fulfilling those, then the needs at the top, they start contributing towards it. So I mean, when I tell you about the needs, maybe then you'll be able to visualize it better. So the very basic and essential need is the physiological need, which everyone wants and everyone needs, and those are the air, water, food, sleep, and clothing. Then there are safety needs like personal security, health. Then the other need is of the need of feeling loved and feeling belonging. So we have friendships there, we have intimacy, and then we have the esteem, and the last, I mean, the one at the top is self actualization, which is the desire to become most that one can be. And how I see it, that uh, the the core of hustling is the desire to become the most we can be, right? So that is located at the top of the pyramid. However, what we fail to realize is that we are not fulfilling the needs that are at the bottom. So we are depriving ourselves of sleep. We are not having proper nutrition. We are, I mean, our relationships get stranded. So I mean, now basic geometry, if the needs at the bottom are not fulfilled, then the top is going to be unsustainable. And that is something that I wanted to just bring towards this, that for something like sales, or even normal team, or even the sort of everyday relationships that we have, it is very important to, if we are looking after it, then it is very important to look after the physiological needs or the safety needs of people around us. Because if we have some sort of societal expectations to manage, then I think this would be the most important one. What do you think, Jose?
I think that's absolutely true. At some points when I was working, I used to skip out on food, and obviously like skip out on food, skip out on sleep, and that is absolutely detrimental to what I believe is the core of what drives me to work, and which is motivation. And talking about motivation, you mentioned Maslow's theory, so I'm sorry, I'm going to bring another theory here. It's Steele's procrastination equation. Steele's procrastination equation, it says motivation is equal to value into expectancy divided by delay into impulsiveness. That's a really fancy way of saying that if you are going to, if you are working on something, the amount of value that is going to be derived from it, that you need to maximize that. And the amount of delay that is going to be factored in over there, the amount of time that is going to take for you to get that reward, that should be minimized. So if you are not at your peak, if you're not at your prime, if you're not eating properly, if you're not sleeping properly, you are going to experience a collapse in your own personal productivity, and that's going to bring your motivation down to work. And it's not just about talking about sales or talking about the corporate world. We can see the same thing in our MBA lives also. And I keep talking about how you need a support structure. I wouldn't be able to survive without my support structure for an MBA. There have been times where I absolutely have not been able to do work. And there have been times where I finished all my work and I have hours and hours of free time. So where the support structure comes in is that my friends have actually literally done my assignments for me, and I have done their assignments for them, because we understand that sometimes things just pile up, so that and not just pile up. Sometimes you just do not have the mental capacity to work on like a billion things that you're supposed to be working on in an MBA.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't yet spoken about having support system, how important it is, but we share one support system. I mean, we have a friends group that we share, and talking about my own self, I wouldn't have been able to survive more than half of the crises I've had in the past 1 year had it not been for my friends. And it's not only about an academic degree and the sort of workload that it comes with, but we have been trying to get the most out of an online degree in pandemic, and we do not have any sort of job security, we do not have any financial security. But I mean, keeping all that aside, we just want to reiterate how important and how healthy it has been for both of us to have people whom we can trust, people with whom we can share our problems, because at the end, one person may not be able to offer solutions as well as two people. And when people, I mean, people whom we trust, they come in, then it's always a wonderful thing to have. And this brings me to the last part of this podcast. At Jose, we have to tell three things that have helped us, both of us, cope better. The landscape it remains the same. That it's a very high pressure and a culture, and a lot of expectations are on us. And we also have to factor in that we will be joining the workforce when the demand is going to be at its peak, and we have to rebuild everything from the scratch. So I'm just going to assume that we are not going to have a lot of time for ourselves. But how can we change that? How can we take time out for ourselves, and how can we ensure that we do not collapse again? I mean, that is very subjective, but I would just like to ask you, what are the three things that you think will help you or have helped you in the past, and then I'll go.
Okay, personally, I won't reiterate on having a support system, because I've done that enough already. Enough. The second thing that I consider most important to having a mental sanity about me is that I mentioned in the middle that I have bipolar disorder. So it's a serious condition which needs medication, basically, and therapy. So having a professional help me out with this is something that I consider absolutely vital, and something that needs to happen for me to be able to succeed at work. The third thing is, let me think. I'll take a bit. So, Arpita, why don't you go ahead with your three, and I'll finish with my last one.
Sure. Okay. The first thing that I would say is ask for help. A lot of times we tend to think that we are better off by not sharing our problems. Sometimes we also think that, it may be burdening the other person, but I am I'm going to be very straightforward and tell you, we all have at least one relationship in our lives where we can talk about absolutely anything. And it's very important that those relationships have some element of reality in it. So asking for help is very essential. And the second thing I would say is uh, channelizing our energies into something that can be quantified, or something that can be like visualized. So I mean, I would say for me, it has been journaling or meditating or affirming, but I understand not everyone has the sort of frequency to sit for 10 minutes quietly, and it's absolutely okay. What I want to say is just have any sort of outlet. If you think you can play, if you think you can just have some time off to just listen to music, to cook something, to dance it out, to sing anything, just something that makes your brain think that I have indulged in any activity apart from thinking, because I mean that's the thing we're trying to avoid maybe. So yeah, channelizing energies into anything, any activity particularly. um, and Jose, you talk about your third point, and then I'll talk about mine.
All right. So the third point is probably the most important one of all. It's to manage your goals. And by manage your goals, what I mean is what I'm trying to say is that hustle is not just there's a lot of negative connotation around the word hustle, but you need to apply your hustle skills into everything that matters. And once you identify what matters to you, once you write down your goals, and once you start to work towards them, once you identify what's really important to you, and you start hustling towards that, and make sure you include your mental health in your what's important to you. Uh, Once you identify those things, it is much easier to work towards them to be able to successfully navigate those things.
Okay, after that, I don't think my third point is going to be as influential, but I just wanted to say that take small breaks. And I really want to emphasize on it as much as I can, because this is going to be my last point. But do take small breaks, and breaks don't always mean going on a vacation or being cut off from the world entirely. Taking small break can be as less as just 5 minutes of doing nothing and just relaxing your muscles and relaxing your eyes, or maybe just having a glass of water, but just letting yourself know that you are taking a break, and in this short span or however long it can be, your priority is just you. And it really does not matter what's going on in the world right now. It could be just crashing and burning, but when you are taking a break, please ensure that your only priority is you, because that's all you're going to have for the rest of your life. And on that note, I would like to thank Jose for taking time out and sharing his extremely valuable opinions with us. And I hope all of us get to take something out of it. I mean, I have a lot of points to take out of it, but I hope all of you have at least something to take out of it. And I hope, Jose, you also have some meaningful thing as a takeaway.
Absolutely. I'll go again and say support systems. That's the most important thing that you need to have
Yes, guys.
around you. You just need to surround yourself with people that matter to you.
Absolutely. So again, I'm just gonna point it out for all of you what all Jose said. He said, know your limits. He said, have a support system. He said, ask for help. He said, have a support system again. He said, take a hiatus if you need. He said, have a support system again. And again, in the end, he said, have a support system. So please ensure that you are surrounded by people who encourage you, support you, and please ensure that you are also doing that for someone. So that is it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Goodbye, everyone.